Well, it's interesting that you say that because, Ice played the last Headfirst show, and there was a lot of people there. And I just remember like people were doing like the circle pit, the moshing thing when we were playing, and I'm like, there's no way. I mean, we'd only played. You were at some of them. We only played a little bit before that, but I just remember being like, okay, happy that we could provide something that people were doing something that looked like normal to them because I never thought the music that Ice played sounded normal. And I don't mean that like, oh, it sounded better than everything. I don't think it sounded normal in the sense that it would get anybody to emote any like anything. So that's what's interesting though about your whole answer to me is it seems like you wouldn't have cared if people were just standing around watching you and paying attention. Like all you wanted was your stuff to be heard.
I think mostly.
Right.
But I will say that later on in the decade, when people started showing up with their backpacks and their oversized glasses and their thrift store clothes and doing that and just standing there like a whole sea of people just standing there like,
Yeah.
okay, that was maybe a little too reserved.
So wait,
That would
jumping
be
ahead a little bit, does that have anything to do with why Farside started? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you guys would open shows with Save It for the Children. Like, was that in any way a part of that, or was that just more just to be Farside?
that was just Popeye, and I thought it was hilarious. And sometimes, sometimes we did it to you know, kind of prod at Bob because Bob was a little more serious about shows. Um,
When
and
you guys
sometimes
did
we,
that at Coos, you guys opened with Save It for the Children. Like, someone was standing there and they're like, "Is this like a new Farside song?" He was a guy that I knew, and I said, "It is." And they're kind of going in a new direction now. So they did a whole new record that sounds like this. And like his face like dropped, and he was like, "Are you serious?" I was like, "No, no." But for a moment, 411 seemed to me like you guys had the world in the palm of your hands. You guys were huge, and then you broke up. Is that an accurate read on my part or no?
um, I don't know. Um, I don't know that we broke up as much as we just. I think we all sort of came to the same unspoken conclusion that we had run our course. That I think we were out of ideas, um, and it wasn't going to go much further. I mean, the second tour that we did, I think we had one or two new songs. So we're basically playing the same set that we had done a year ago. Which, if you think about that, that's crazy. Like we cranked out what 13 songs or something like that in a matter of months, and then the next year and a half we come up with like two. And there's some riffs that never really went anywhere.
During that time, were you guys still practicing
Yeah,
consistently? Okay, so it
yeah.
was practicing, playing the same set, fine tuned machine, but there's nothing new happening other than those two new songs.
There were new songs, but they weren't they weren't particularly good.
Gotcha.
There was a song called Heartbeat, I think.
Oh, that's a great song.
See, I think that song's so boring musically. Is that how it goes?
That's how. Okay, that's how I remember it going. But you don't want to go. You don't want to go off of me.
Yeah, I just musically, I remember even at the time thinking this has got no energy. It's boring. I thought Flesh was an okay song.
By the way,
Um,
that might have been what I was just singing.
I think
Just
that might be
yeah.
what you. Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
now I'm hearing what you were doing. Yes, that song. Yeah, that song was pretty good. But there were a couple other songs that just weren't cutting it. And for whatever reason, Josh and I we'd run dry. We weren't coming up with ideas. And I think Mario was already eyeing other bands. He very quickly started doing Metro Shifter and Clickitat and Ash's Dust. So he was already kind of had his whole hand in a bunch of other pies already. Um,
Question. Question: If and was Little Steve in that version of Ashes Dust?
Yep.
Okay, because I remember. Okay, I remember that. Okay, let's say that you guys want to continue doing the band. Mario leaves the band. Do you think the band continues?
I mean, I probably wouldn't have done it. No, I don't think so.
I mean,
But
I
say
just
that
because he
because
is. Yeah, no, please. I'm sorry.
I say that because I only have I can't picture. I mean, I guess if the band continues and we're really cooking and we've got a lot of great new songs and we're real creative and it's going great and Mario decides to quit, maybe.
Right.
But that just wasn't the case.
He also seems to me like once you played with him in a specific band, like you could start another band with new dudes, or dudettes. But if you are doing a band with him, it would be very hard to find somebody. I mean, you probably could, but someone that could do what he does.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with drummers is there's a lot of good drummers that are out there. There's not a lot of drummers that have a sound that you hear it and you immediately know who it is, right? Like John Bonham. You hear John Bonham, you're like, that's John Bonham.
Right.
Because he had a style, and Keith Moon had a style, and Mario definitely has a style. Like if you listen to Earthless or Rocket or Hot Snakes or Off or any of those, it all sounds like Mario. No matter what if he's playing like some Black Flagish song or if he's playing that 25-minute psych jam, it's Mario. I mean, you can identify who it is. Bob is the same way. Bob has got a real swing to what he's doing. I think he would tell you that he doesn't think he's all that good, but he is good and he's got his own voice. So yeah, it would have been really tough to replace Mario.
So then from there, how do you get in Farside?
Well, at the end of the 401, the second 401 tour, I think our last show was in Berkeley, and the way I remember it was Dan had decided he was going to stick around for a while, and he had eventually, he either eventually moved up there or he stayed.
Right.
It was one of the two, and so we went back, and that was about it. We were done, and Headfirst was broken up, and so I was toying around with the idea of doing a new band, but I couldn't. I don't know. You've met me. I'm lazy. And so
well, at one point, I don't mean to interrupt you. At one point, we sat at Denny's. I forget who we were with, and you talked about doing a band called Baloney. Just to remind you, I forget what it was going to sound like, but I just remember thinking, if anyone can do a band called Baloney, it's Kevin Murphy. You were also going to do a band with Loman called Death Church.
Oh, I do remember that. Yeah. Yeah, that would have been fun.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I don't think I brought up Baloney to you since 1993 when you told me you were going to do a band called Baloney.
I wonder if that was. Do you remember, like, for a while? I'll answer your question, but do you remember for a while, like, every band coming out of San Diego was named like Doorstop,
yes,
or Bathtub or something
yes.
like that. Maybe that's what that was. Anyway, I had toyed around with this idea. I was going to do this band. I was going to call it Beatless, which was Beatles but with an extra S.
Which is brilliant, by the way. Like that's pretty brilliant, dude.
Yeah, it's pretty clever.
Leap. And the world still needs to hear Leap. The world, you need to re-record. You need to record Leap. At least do that, and then you can tell me that you're done with everything. Go on. I'm sorry.
That tape has got to be somewhere.
But we don't need.
Yeah, I was going to do that, but I couldn't. I couldn't find people that could do it. The people that I wanted to be in the band with me were like tied up with other stuff. And so just by chance, Popeye called the house, and I was out. This is Popeye's version of it, and I don't remember this, but he remembers it. He called, and Jeff Goodson answered, and Popeye said something like, "You think Kevin would want to join Farside?" And Jeff was like, "Oh, sure, yeah, I'll write it down, leave it up for him." And he did, and I mean, I thought, I like Farside. They're a good band. They're kind of what I would like to do. A little wimpy, but maybe that can change. And B, had nothing else going on. And I knew Popeye and Chew, at least. I really liked them as people. I didn't know Bob. I was intimidated by Bob.
Right. As we all are.
I think, yeah, until you meet him and then you realize that.
I'm still intimidated, but that's just me.
I think that's because he likes to pick on you.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. Trust me. Yes, still, after all these years.
So that was really it. They were in the middle of booking a tour to Europe to support Rochambeau, which was about to come out. And Rob had quit and was moving to Salt Lake City to go to, I think he was going to go to school with his brother. And so I joined thinking, I'm gonna fill in until they find somebody. But then a few months in, that it became apparent that this was going to work out, and so I stuck around.
Because it's interesting, because I know that when I played Popeye the Beatless stuff, because this is before I think Rob was still in the band. Popeye said, "I go, what'd you think of it?" He's all, "Well, I want to play second guitar on that stuff," and I didn't really think anything of that. I'm like, "Oh, Popeye, Popeye, like yourself, is one of those people that I don't think really knows how truly talented he is." So,
I agree.
So for him, he was like, "Oh, I would love to play with Kevin because Kevin is so good," and blah blah blah. And you are, and I think that you're the same way. That you were looking at Farside like, "Oh, I like these guys. I like this band. I'll do it." And so when Rob quit, Popeye told me, because I'll be honest, when Popeye told me that Rob quit, I was like, "Well, this band's done." Like, I mean, Rob was, I mean, dude, those early Farside songs are that's some great stuff. And
Yeah.
I was like, when Popeye told me that, I was really bummed because I'm like, dude, they're done. And then he told me he wanted to get you in the band, and I remember thinking, I don't know if Kevin's gonna do that. And then you called me and you were like, "Dude, Farside just asked me to go to Europe with them," and I was like, "Dude, so you're in the band?" And you were like, "Well, I don't know if they really want me in the band, blah, 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 blah." But my whole thing was the way that Popeye presented it to me was, oh, they wanted you to be the guy in the band. So you go, I mean, you didn't really know them that well, and then you're on tour with them for like 6 or 7 weeks in Europe? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that at all like, because I know that you, like me to a degree, don't tour easily. Was that another layer on top of that, or I mean, to me, I would think, oh, they're such good dudes that you would, just kind of get over that.
The tour. So you're right. I was never a big fan of touring. The first time I went on tour with it was with Headfirst, and about 3 days in, I was like, this sucks. This is not fun. This is work, and it's uncomfortable, and I'm hungry, and I can't stop sweating, and the thing with the Farside Europe tour was there was a lot of things that compounded it to make it even worse for me, which was the guy that was originally going to book it. I want to say his name was Aiden, but it was something very, very English. A few weeks before we were supposed to leave, we found out he had only booked one show, and we were going to arrive in Frankfurt, Germany, and we were going to come home many weeks later, and somewhere in the middle was London that had been booked. So Jordan reached out to him a guy that he knew, this guy Ian Leck, who you know the band Voorhees?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he was singer for Voorhees. He runs a club in the UK right now called Boom in Leeds. Anyway, he reached out to Ian. Ian didn't know who we were, and was just like, "Yeah, I'll see what I can do." So we flew over there with a handful of shows booked and a lot of open slots, and Ian was like maniacally trying to get these shows booked. So we would call him nightly and daily. Like we'd call Bradford, England, and he'd be like, "Okay, I you guys have a show in Amsterdam," and we'd be in France or someplace, and so you'd have to drive to, I don't know, Torino, Italy, 500 miles or something like that from show to show because he was just booking whatever he could get.
Where was the money to do that coming from? Is it coming from shows, merch, all of it?
No, no, no. So that's the thing. We went into so much debt on that tour because first, like a bunch of amateurs, we thought we'll just fly all of our own equipment over. So amplifiers, drums, all of it. We flew that. It was massively expensive. Um, my amplifier blew up the first night, so we had to borrow a guitar amp every single night we played. That was our first order of business, and we had no merch for I think the first 2 weeks, and then finally we played a show with Super Touch in, I don't know, Germany or someplace, um, and they showed up with a big box and like, "Hey, we've got your merchandise." So the first few weeks we were making like $15 a show, um, and we had come over with a little bit of pocket money, but that went fast. Um, so we were not eating a lot. All the money was going into the gas tank, and the gas tank, by the way, was a Volkswagen Eurovan, which is not big, and it wasn't set up for like there wasn't a loft or anything. It just had seats, so we jammed everything in there. You couldn't lie down, and we're driving 500 miles a night. It was awful.
Was there ever talk of throwing in the towel?
No, I mean, there wasn't an option. We didn't have the money to like buy tickets home. I mean, we were.
So how did you ultimately get home from this?
Well, I mean, eventually once we got the merchandise and we started to kind of make a little bit of money and break even. Um, um, but Ian, just a saint, he kept getting the shows. So we wound up playing pretty much everything, I think, except for the shows in Ireland fell through. I don't remember why, but anyway, we had a week off and we just spent it at his flat in Bradford, England.
So if you guys don't start making money, I never realized this. If you guys don't start making money, you're hitting up Jordan or someone. Hey, we've been here however many weeks. It's time to come home. Well, I mean, like, let's say 5 weeks go by. Hey, we haven't made any money. The tour's over. It's time to am I reading that correctly or no?
I mean, I think that would have been like the emergency escape hatch if we really had to pull the trigger on that. But even that would have been a bit of a Hail Mary because this was Revelation wasn't, they weren't as big as they would get at that point. We were touring on Rochambeau, which when we left for Europe, I think had been out only in the US for a couple of weeks.
Uh-huh.
So nobody knew who we were. And then we get there and we have no merchandise to sell. So it's just like, you're American. I came to see the American band. And that was the only draw. So maybe Jordan could have bailed us out, but I mean, I don't know if you remember the early Revelation days, but they kind of had a reputation for, the Bold record is coming out. I'm going to mail them my $6, and then maybe 8 months later I'll get it, just because the money was going in to fund the next project,
Right.
and if there was any profit, then you could handle postage and all that. And Rev wasn't, they weren't as big as they would get yet. They didn't have Sensefield, they didn't have Into Another. You know, they had Youth of Today. I don't even know if they had Youth of Today. Well, I guess they had the 7-inch at that point, but I think the rest of it was still on Caroline, and they had Gorilla Biscuits. So maybe Jordan could have bailed us out, but he paid to get us over there. So we were already in hock for that.